Hey guys, Brian from Snowwalker Outdoor as well. Took me an awfully long time, but I finally decided that I'm going to enter the realm of hot tenting for when I go out winter trekking. This will also come in handy for in the fall when we want to do fall hunts and we want to stay a little bit warmer than we normally would. And it's good because it'll open it up even while we're doing some canoeing in the colder months too, to carry a stove and a hot tent. So today what we're going to do is we're going to burn in this new stove. This is the Kni Co Stove, and I got this from Snow Trekker Tents. A couple of differences on this stove in comparison to if you bought the stove direct from Kni Co. They put these hoops on here to use for flotation for when we're in the snow, and what we would do is we would put a stick through there to help keep the stove up off the ground. A lot of times when you're hot tenting, the snow will melt and you'll get a puddle underneath. So they put that in there to help with the flotation. The second thing that comes into play is this starts off here as a 3-inch hole and actually goes up to about a 4-inch to 5-inch hole, depending on the pipe system that you have. Now, if you get your stove direct from Kni Co, this is a 5-inch hole and then reduces down so that your smallest pipe is on the top. When you get it from Snow Trekker, when they make this stove for them, it's reversed. And you'll see that on the instructions. I actually called them to ask them if I had the correct pipe sections. So we're going to go over the parts of the stove, what we have. We're going to light it up and get our first burn in. And the reason that we do a first burn on the stove itself is when it comes from the factory, there are oils on the outside of the stove as well as your pipes and everything to prevent it from rusting. So we're going to go ahead, take a look at the parts now. So obviously we have the stove itself. Here's our latch. We're going to open up our stove, our vent to help with the draft. Here we have our elbow, which we would use in the tent. We have a small spark arrestor if we went with the smaller pipe. We also have our damper right here as well. Here we have a 4-section pipe and a shelf that'll go to the side of the stove, and we'll put that on before we even get our burn in. Let's take a look at it from the ground up. As you can see here, we put our shelf on. There's our 3-inch pipe as it starts to go up. And as you can see, the pipe actually gradually gets larger as it goes up to the spark arrestor there. Okay, now next thing we're going to do, we got to fill it with sand. The reason that we put the sand in the bottom of the stove is actually to protect the bottom of the stove. You could burn wood on the bottom of it, but over the course of time, after several burnings, the metal contracts, heats up, contracts, heats up, contracts, going back and forth. It'll actually improve the life of the stove. However, in the winter time, when the ground is frozen, you're going to have a tough time actually finding some sand or some dirt. So they do make false bottoms, and actually a friend of mine is actually making a false bottom for this for me right now, and we'll actually put that in there. And basically it's a piece of metal that'll come up and it's perforated with holes so that you get a better draft and a better burn time. Thought I was going to use a ferro rod to start this, didn't you? as we talked about, that's the oils, the production oils that are on the stove that you want to start to burn off. And that's what we're doing. That's why we do it outside. We don't do it in a tent right off the bat. So we're going to let this go for a while, see what we get. I mean, just this little bit outside, I mean, this thing throws off a lot of heat, and I'm actually very sorry that I didn't get into hot tenting long ago. I tell you what, it probably would have saved me a lot of nights where my back was pretty bad after I woke up in the morning. Whoo-wee! I'm telling you, there you go. This is the way to go, kid, right here. Let's take a look at some safety issues that we have and some warnings that Kni Co actually provides with the stove. The stove has sharp edges, so wear your gloves when you're handling your stove. That's why I use the leather gloves. Make sure that you have proper ventilation when the stove is in use. Right? We don't want to build up with carbon monoxide in the tent so that we wind up waking up and taking the dirt nap. You know what I'm saying? We don't want that. We don't want the cherry reds. Okay? Install at a safe distance from the flammable surfaces. Make sure that there is enough room in between the flammable surface, the tent, between the stove and the tent. Never use combustible liquids to start the fire. Basically, do not use any white gas, gasoline, anything of that nature that you're going to start a fire with. Don't do it. Have a non-flammable safety zone in front of the stove. Out here, sparks can come through the damper holes. Okay, it's possible. Never leave the stove unattended. All right, so you leave your tent, stove ain't going. Okay, make sure it's out. Make sure there's somebody around the stove all the time. And actually pre-burn your stove and the pipe outside before using, which is what we're doing today. The tea water is done. You saw me take it off, so we're going to go ahead and make our tea. So that's pretty much it. It's just to introduce you to the new stove, burning a new stove in, and what you're supposed to do with that. It's not a review on the stove. I haven't even used it yet, outside of burning the stove in. It was the first burn. So, but it is to show you some of the newer things that we're going to be discussing. We're a little behind the 8 ball. Took us a while to get our stove. We just got caught behind the 8 ball this year. So, I'm going to finish my tea. I'll let this die down right now, and then we're going to oil it up, and we're going to store it until the next time. So, Brian from Snow Walker Outdoors, thanks for your views and your comments, and until the next one, walk the woods and know before you go.